authorities done enough to meet the young people at their point of need? My guest this evening, Youth Sports and Child Development Minister, Mr. Emmanuel Mlenga. Sir, welcome to the program.
Thank you very much. Good evening, Mr. Zulu, and good evening, viewers.
Well, the most pronounced part of your ministry is sports, but I want you to just explain, what does your ministry cover? It's youth, sports, and child development.
Okay, my ministry is a ministry of youth, sport, and child development. It looks in the welfare of children. It also looks in the welfare of youths, as well as sport. You did indicate that we have a population of 4 million youths. According to the labor census, which was done in 2018 by our departments, it indicated that apparently we have got 6 million youths who are above the age of 15 and below the age of 35. So our duty is to make sure that we create a conducive environment for the youths as well as the children, who comprise 42% of the population of Zambia. 42% of the population of Zambia are children, and 37% of the population of Zambia are youths. And the rest, which is about 18%, are individuals above the age of 35.
Now, this month, I think this is your month, Minister. The nation has once again awoken to the reality that young people are not getting what they deserve. If at all they're getting anything, it's not adequate. And we saw this come through protests. We had protests which I know we're going to detail with that. But let's look at what the protest was all about. Are the concerns from the young people justified?
Okay. Once I got in touch with some of the youths who were protesting, and I should indicate, Gravaggio, that a youth is somebody who's below the age of 35, and not anyone who's above the age of 35. If you look at the protests which were done on social media and other platforms, I'll tell you that some are not youths. They're just masquerading to be youths. There are some who were protesting, who were youths when I was in primary, who were also youths when I was in secondary. Even now, I'm above the age of 35, but those people who were youths when I was in primary are still claiming to be youths now. So we need to put in a distinction. Who's a youth and who's not a youth? And a youth is somebody who's below the age of 35. And after seeing that many concerns were aired by so-called youths and youths, of course, we called for a meeting at Government Complex, where about 200 youths attended. I know others have been crying that did not cut across the country, but this was very urgent.
Now that was very reactionary from yourselves.
It was very urgent.
One youth goes on social media and he's got this huge following around his posting, and suddenly you're calling a meeting within 2 days. Was that a fair, a normal way of doing things? I mean, you couldn't call a meeting couldn't you have waited? A more organized meeting?
You need to understand that the youths were calling for a protest, that they needed a platform to be heard. And it's our responsibility to create a platform for the youths. If they go on the streets to throw stones and demonstrate, who's going to hear them? No minister is found on the streets. No minister is found in the bush. And there is a minister.
Is that because you've grown up or probably been oriented to believe the youths must come to your office? You cannot follow them to the bush. You cannot follow them to the street where they're protesting and protest with them because you agree with their cause.
Gravaggio, what will I be doing in the bush?
Meeting the youth.
Where there are snakes. There is a structure which has been created by the Constitution of Zambia. My office is a constitutional office. So since it's a constitutional office, I should operating according to the Constitution and the defined laws of this country. There's a structure which has been created. That's the Ministry of Youth, and under the Ministry of Youth, we have other departments as well as other organizations who interact very closely with the youth. So every youth should use this structure. Remember that when we are growing up, for us to when we go wrong, our parents used to beat us as a way of punishment and as a way of correcting us. But now, we don't beat our children. We engage them. There is a change in the way we approach things. When our parents were fighting for independence, they used to go to protest and go to the streets. But why should youth go to the streets? When there are organizations, when there is a ministry which is responsible for them, why not engage the ministry? Air their views. Look at what they did. We called for a meeting. They came for a meeting. They put across what they needed to be attended to. We compiled that, presented to Cabinet. And His Excellency the President, he has started actually responding to the needs which the youths put across. One of them was lack of unemployment. They need to be empowered financially. Yesterday, when on Thursday, when the President was making pronouncements, he did indicate that we have set aside 30 million kwacha for artists. That's not it all. The President is actually looking at other empowerments, because there are many issues which have been raised by the.
Well, before we get into the issues, I wanted to address these issues. These are the concerns that have come through. There's a group that initially was like pioneering this debate, called out the issues. You called a meeting, which was at short notice, and they told you it was at short notice, but you went ahead. And now there's a question: what kind of youths attended your meeting? Were they ruling party youths? Were they picked from intercity? How did you come up with this group of youths to come and attend that conference?
Okay, I need to tell you that we have got the Youth National Sports Council, which interacts with the youth across the country. And when we called for this meeting, the Youth
Council,
National Council, looked at the database and looked at the civil society leaders and youth activists, who are youths for that matter, and not someone who's 50 years. Someone who's a youth leading fellow youths. They looked at the database and they made sure that from the Copper Belt, they called in 4. From Eastern Province, they called 4. From Central Province, they called 4. And the rest were called from universities, colleges, as well as other training centers, like skills training centers, and those who are not in school or.
That notice, Minister, was less than 3 days.
It wasn't less than 3 days. The communication was done on a Monday, and the meeting was held on a Friday.
And you did expect the youth to mobilize themselves from Eastern Province?
Yeah, because we provided transport. We provided transport. We gave them transport refunds. For those who didn't have transport, we told our provincial coordinators to provide transport. Those who were able to provide transport and made it to come to the meeting, we refunded them their transport cost.
By your standards, you would say the meeting was well represented. It was representative of all the youths in the country.
It wasn't all the youths in the country, but we should. But
they had representation.
We should remember, Gravajo, that the problems faced by the youth in Lusaka, it's similar to the problem faced by the youth on the Copper Belt. Countrywide, the youths are crying for levels of unemployment and inclusiveness in the governance system. Their language is the same. So actually, it's not the first and the last meeting to be held. I should remind you that in March this year, 2020, His Excellency the President hosted an INDA at Mlungush Conference Center. That is just 2 months ago. And they presented these issues before them. I mean, that was a well representation of all the youths across the country, because equal number was drawn from all the 10 provinces to come and sit with the head of state and speak with the head of state and present their issues. They did present their issues, and these issues is actually attending to them. That's why, even before they protested, he instructed Ministry of Livestock and Fisheries to speed up the process of empowerment towards fish farming. Just fish farming alone has a tune of 29 to 30 million dollars, US dollars. And 30% of that money is for the youths. 30% of $30 million, it's $9 million. $9 million translated into kwacha, it's over 70 million kwacha to go into fish farming and value addition. So what should the youths do since there is this money? What the youths are supposed to do is to do a bankable document. If they are unable to do a bankable document, that's the reason to why we have got National Youth Council, which will help them come up with a bankable document. It's our responsibility as the Ministry of Youth to make sure that we pass on these documents to Ministry of Livestock. It's our responsibility to make sure that those youths who are passing through our institution are empowered. If there is a challenge, we engage the youths. We engage Ministry of Livestock, sit down with them and find a win-win situation so that youths are empowered. We should, I should state that we have a deficit of 40,000 metric tons of fish in this country. Much of that fish is being imported out of this country. When there's a challenge, there's an opportunity for a business. So you should use this as an opportunity for business. There is already a ready market for fish. Why go to the streets and protest?
Minister, I did ask you whether you were listening to the youths. I think you're not.
Why do you say so?
Because your approach is when the youths cry, throw money at them. And no, it's not working.
We are not throwing money at them. We are not,
because they've protested. Now you tell them, okay, there's 30 million now for you artists, you can go. We've got 29 million aquaculture fund. Well, we've got, but this has not worked from time immemorial. I mean, you have and you had the Youth Development Fund. It never worked. So you throw money at the youth. It's not what they want.
This is a wrong notion and a wrong philosophy that we are throwing money at the youth. Remember, you have just alluded to the fact that we had Youth Development Fund.
It never worked.
Which was being administered by Ministry of Youth. That fund was altered a year or two later. Why? Because the default rate among the youths was high. And government said, let's do a visibility study and check why the youths are not paying back. Remember that in Zambia, the default rate is high. Whether be youth or not be youth, the default rate is high. Check the statistics with the bank. But coming to the youths, we did check as government. And we did find that one thing which we are lacking as a Ministry of Youth is the capacity of human resource to manage the fund as well as the empowerment system. We need to know that before an empowerment is being undertaken or given to a youth, a visibility study should be done. It should be done. It's not one shade fits all. We need to study the challenges of youths in each district and every province. If you look at that fund when it was suspended and the default rate was high and we didn't have the capacity. Now you are talking that that money has been taken, $30 million has been thrown at the youth. This money is now sitting with Ministry of Livestock and Fisheries. Why is it sitting with Ministry of Livestock and Fisheries and us we are put to be a coordinating ministry? Why it's sitting with Ministry of Fisheries and Livestock? Because they have the human resource. They have vet doctors. We don't understand fish, but we have individuals and employees in Ministry of Livestock and Fisheries who understand fish. Today as a ministry we'll sink up fish ponds, buy fingerlings, buy feed for the fish and give them a startup capital for them to pay or meet their daily expenses, monthly expenses before they start harvesting and selling. What if in the middle of the process, 3 months later, before we reach to 6 months when the fish is ready for harvest, there is a disease in the ponds? We don't have the capacity as a ministry to attend to that challenge. But Ministry of Livestock and Fisheries, they have got vet doctors as well as other employees who are educated in that field. It's easy for them to attend to them. And also, it's easy for the ministry to attach certain officers to these empowerment programs. Those officers who act as extension officers in making sure that the fish which is being grown by the youths is being harvested, sold out, and the youth should make a profit. So government is not throwing money at them. Look at the
how much work have you done to try and remodel the thinking of the young people? They don't want money; they want jobs.
You need to understand.
I think that's a traditional thing. So it's a cultural thing. Maybe young people have grown up to go to school, get employed, get your salary, and not to create jobs. It's something. I mean, if you look at the Youth Development Fund, you've spoken about it, elaborated the challenges and everything. That thing was in existence for almost 19 years. The fruits are nothing to talk about, and that should give you a hint of where we're going. You will give them the aquaculture fund. How do you expect them to succeed if they don't have the capacity?
They are going to
succeed. Are you building capacity? Are those issues you're creating?
They are going to succeed because this project is being managed by the ministry, by the lining ministry, which is responsible, which has a human resource. The job of the Ministry of Livestock and Fisheries is to make sure that it equips the youth with skills on how to keep fish. It's not rocket science in keeping fish. You should just have a business acumen. And you are saying that many youths went to school so that they can have a white-collar job. I should tell you, Grevajo, that the many youths who finish school have never been employed, have employed themselves. I should remind you that a week or two ago, His Excellency the President visited the dumping site. And we met a young youth who said that, I used to pick plastics from this dumping site. From picking plastics, I now drive. He drives, he has built a house, and he has employed 4 graduates. And he said he is just a grade 9 failure. He has got the business acumen, but he needs a startup capital, and he also needs skills to help him run the business. So what's our job as a Minister of Youth? To create a conducive environment, identify such individuals. Even me, I went to school. The first white-collar job I've had in my life is to be a member of parliament and to be a minister. I started business when I was 14 years. From the time I was 15, I never knew how it felt to your parents to buy clothes for you or buy uniforms for you. I used to buy for myself. University studies which I've done, I sponsored myself. I wasn't looking for a white-collar job.
Do you believe, though, that we still have to teach the young people to go and create the jobs? If that wasn't the case, I mean, your money at CEC would have been taken up by now. The 30% would have all been gone.
It's not that youths need to be taught. We've got youths who are responsible in this country,
who are not accessing the money.
Yes, and we feel that, and His Excellency has confidence in the youths. That's why you have seen that during his appointment, he's appointing a lot of young people.
You were defining youth, not necessarily youths.
Young people. Look at the political advisor to the president, Mr. Zambian. He's pretty young. We are going towards elections. And if the preoccupation of the president was to win elections, he would have employed someone with the experience of winning someone an election. But because his heart goes towards the youths, he employed someone who has a youthful mind and can relate with the youths and advise the president according to the needs of the youths. So, we have got responsible youths. I'm very sure. and certain that we have responsible youths. Had a meeting the other Friday with the youths. I told the youths, look guys, Ministry of in the DMMU under the office of our Honor the Vice President is buying face masks. I've got an order for you to produce 500 face masks, 500,000 face masks. And we gave the youths who were in the meeting, each one of them to produce 4,000 face masks. They came to my office on Friday and presented the face masks which they have made. And they were telling me that the cost of producing face masks, 4,000 face masks, was 19,000. I asked them to break down the cost. They said 7,000 went towards the purchase of material. And since some of us, we are not tailors, this is a business opportunity. We engage tailors who have charged us 3 kwacha to produce one face mask. 3 kwacha times 4,000, that's 12,000. So their total cost was 19,000. They are selling each face mask for 10 kwacha. 10 kwacha times 4,000, it's 40,000. 40,000 subtract 19,000, that's 21,000. 21,000. So it simply means that each youth is making 21,000 in 14 days. That's an opportunity. And we believe in them. If they can do this, I think they're able to do many
They can
more.
do bigger things.
They can do bigger things.
When you listen to the concerns, and then we're probably getting to itemize them. One of the concerns was that their freedom of expression is shrinking. And there was a background to that, which probably I may not go in. But then you've come to attack them, that they shouldn't have gone to the bush. They should have come to your office. When we look at freedom of expression, maybe you should have followed them to the bush, or probably you should have asked them, where are you protesting to? They would have told you, probably, no, we're going to Heroes. And you would have told them, I'm coming to Heroes to address you. But you decided, thou shalt not protest.
Gravaggio, I heard St. Michael speaking, holding a placard that we the youth. Honestly speaking, Mr. Zulu, is St. Michael a youth?
Are you a youth yourself? That's the question should be. You're running youth affairs and you're not a youth.
I should tell you that me, I hold a constitutional office. There is no law in the constitution which states that a minister should be a youth. So according to the constitution, I'm well placed. But if you look at a youth, the constitution defines who a youth is. Or the laws of Zambia do define who a youth is. A youth is someone who's below the age of 35.
But there's no law that prevents me, who's above 35, from speaking for the youth.
Why should you speak for them?
There's no law that bars.
When
there's no law. You've mentioned the name, and I'll probably mention it again myself. There's no law that bars St. Michael from speaking for the young people.
He was saying we the youths. He didn't say that I'm speaking for the youths.
There's a distinction. Was that your biggest issue?
There's a distinction. There's a distinction. Those who are purporting to be youths, masquerading to be youths, and youths themselves. I want youths to speak for themselves. Because the challenges which St. Michael has and the challenges which the youth has are different.
How do you hope to see the youth when you tell them not to protest? You deny them a permit as government.
Gravaggio, what did you gain from protests?
They can deliver a petition to your office.
Petition? Why can't they just walk into my office and deliver a petition?
Why dictating the way they should behave?
I'm not dictating, but it's
if they're saying we want to come with a petition, why don't you allow them to come with a petition to your office? And you tell them, no, you shouldn't bring a petition. I'm going to call a conference.
Number one.
Then you are talking down
Number
to
one.
them. And
Number one.
You should talk to,
yes.
to each
Number
other
one.
with the young people.
There's a smarter way of engaging each other. I believe youths are smart. And since youths are smart, they need to use a smarter way of presenting their grievances. What is a smarter way? Engage the person who you think has stepped on your toes in a smarter way. Gravaggio, we should not lose the culture of this nation. There is no way and not a time did we go and stand on top of a hill and shout at our father. You would sit with your parent or with your father and tell him the things which are affecting you. Government is a father to the youth. They need to engage the ministry or the government accordingly in a smarter way. I believe, I've no doubt in my mind.
Who decides what is who decides what is smart? What's a smart way?
I've no doubt in my mind that the youth are smart, and they should just engage in a smart way. That's number one. Number two, those who went to the bush, many of them are not youths.
Did you check their following?
Yes.
On social media?
I didn't
check
their following, but just looking at many of them who went to the bush are not youths.
If they had a huge following.
Number two, what did they benefit from going in the bush? There are no prophets in the bush. Those who came to my ministry, I've just told you that they have made, each one of them has made a profit of 21,000 in 14 days. Those who went to the bush, what have they gained? They are just being used by politicians with selfish ambitions. Politicians who forget them when they go into office. They are just being used by selfish politicians who have failed to go into State House in the past 6 elections, general elections we have failed in this country. We need youths who are going to present their views and engage government in solving their views. Being used by a politician who won't change your status. What you change your status is the way, number one, the way you conduct yourself. Number two, making sure that you achieve what you want to achieve. And what you want to achieve, it's economical independence.
What makes you so sure they're being used by politicians?
Is
that a way of shutting them up?
No, it's not a way of shutting them up. If there is an office, there is a platform which we can use, and the platform has been created for you, you decide not to come to the meeting and you go to the bush. You're just being used by a politician. What will it change? What you're crying for, it's economical independence.
You've gone into a panic as government over the issues raised by the youth.
No,
we've seen in the recent past. And I mean, you called a meeting immediately that the videos went viral about the youth complaining. Suddenly, we've seen the Minister of Information hold regular meetings with the young people. We saw you with other ministers at the ministry holding meetings to see and empower young people. Now there's a 30 million down for the youth. Now we've also heard DMME also announced that 75% of various contracts are for the youth. All these things and where have they been? Where have all these issues been?
It's not a panic. Remember Grevaggio, that when
it's a reaction?
No.
Use a polite word.
No. It's not a reaction. It's not a reaction. Number one.
It was planned?
Number one, I did tell you that the youths had a meeting with the president in March. We had youth in that. When was the Aqua Fund introduced?